The FIIL T1XS is a highly anticipated set of true wireless earbuds coming from the company FIIL and is a successor to the FIIL T1X. Now, a natural question comes up because of the price point. These or the SoundPeats H1. So in this video, we're going to determine which one is the right one for you. Now, if you're interested in checking out either of these earbuds, hit the links in the description box down below, and that's going to take you to the latest updated pricing. Now, before we go any further, and for full disclosure, because I like having transparency and honesty with my viewers, SoundPeats did reach out to me. They sent over the H1s for my honest opinion and review. As far as the FIIL T1XS, I went ahead and bought those myself with my own money for testing and review purposes. Now, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the way that I receive or review these products, check out the full disclosure that I'm going to leave in the video description down below. So first, let's talk about the similarities. As far as the connection goes, they're both running Bluetooth 5.0. As far as range is concerned, they're going to give you somewhere between 30 and 40 feet or 8 to 10 meters for my friends overseas. They both feature dual connect, so you can use them individually while the other one is charging in the case, and it is very seamless on both of these. Not only that, they both feature high performance or quote-unquote gaming mode. So if you want to game with these, you can activate a lower latency mode so that you can have a better experience, whether it's for high performance gaming or even if you want to have less latency when you're watching videos or movies. And as far as similarities, that's pretty much it. So now let's get into the differences. So first up, it's going to be the battery and the case. Now, the similarities in the case is going to be that they're both run USB Type-C. And as far as the battery life of the case, you're going to get 24 hours with the FIIL T1XS, and you're going to get about 30 hours on the SoundPeats H1. So for the case, the H1 is going to give you a bit more rechargeability. As far as the earbuds themselves, both of them are claiming 6 hours on a single charge. In my own personal testing, it was actually pretty close. I managed to get 6 hours and 4 minutes out of the T1XS, and I managed to get 5 hours and 44 minutes on the SoundPeats H1. So as far as overall battery life, they are very similar. So slightly more playback time with a bit less battery in the case for the T1XS. I think overall you're going to be able to get much more usage out of the H1s. So for overall battery life, I'm going to have to give them the win here. So now let's move over to comfort. Now, let me just preface this by saying that comfort is highly subjective. So this is something that applies to me with my large ears, so it may not apply to you. So just keep that in mind. As far as comfort though, for me personally, the T1XS are more comfortable than the SoundPeats H1, but neither of them is uncomfortable to me. The size of the T1XS is noticeably smaller than that of the H1. So it sits in your ear a little bit differently, but it still holds just as well. But being that it is smaller, it makes less contact with my ears, so overall, it is slightly more comfortable. So now let's move over to the microphones and the call quality. So both of these are featuring dual microphones and they both have stereo calling. But before we go any further, let me play you some call quality samples of both of these earbuds back to back, and this way, you can be the judge of the call quality for yourself.
All right, so here we have the call quality test for the FIIL T1XS. So testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. Obviously, I'm indoors in a semi-quiet environment. So here we have the call quality test for the SoundPeats H1. So testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. Indoor environment, semi-quiet, not too bad. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. So here we have the FIIL T1XS with a simulated crowd noise environment, like what you would experience in a crowded cafe, a restaurant, a lobby, maybe a crowded train station, whatever it might be. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. So here we have the SoundPeats H1 with some simulated crowd noise, like what you would have in a cafe, restaurant, something of that nature. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Now, on the topics of the microphones and the call quality, the FIIL T1XS also feature an ambient mode. Now, unfortunately, the H1s do not have this feature, which to me just boggles my mind. I fully expected them to have it, but they don't. But the FIIL T1XS do. Now, it works fairly well. You turn it on, you can hear what's going on around you, but it is not the best ambient mode that I have ever heard on any earbuds. Matter of fact, in my review of the T1XS, I mentioned the excessive amount of white noise that gets pulled in along with the ambient sound around you. So it can be a little disconcerting at times, especially if you are in a louder environment with like machinery, fans, air conditioners, things of that nature. Now, I do wish that FIIL would have implemented some sort of a volume adjustment in the app, the way that JLab has done, the way that Edifier has done. Unfortunately, that is not the case, but it is there. So if ambient sound is a feature that you are really interested in, then just be aware. As far as ambient sound goes, the win goes to the FIIL T1XS, because they actually have it. So now let's go ahead and segue over to the volume. So as far as volume is concerned, neither of these are quiet, but one is noticeably louder than the other. So the T1XS, in my personal opinion, comes in at a 7.5-ish out of 10. So still quite loud, but not the loudest earbuds out there. Whereas the SoundPeats H1 are coming in at a 8.5 out of 10 easily. So we're talking like 2 to 3 additional ticks of volume over the T1XS. So if you're somebody who is hard of hearing, or if you are a volume junkie and you want to max out these earbuds, then I believe here for volume overall, the H1s are really going to be the ones to go and the clear winner in the volume category. Now let's move over to sound. Now, this is where these truly do differentiate from each other, because for me, these are two completely different flavors of sound. The T1XS is not a hybrid or a dual driver design. This is a single dynamic driver, very well tuned, but it's a single dynamic driver. So what it's going to bring you is strong bass, a smooth mid-forward type of sound. So a strong mid-range and really nice. This is what I really like about the FIIL T1X and the T1XS. And very decent clarity with some pretty good soundstage. Overall, this is the main reason why I still continue to this day to call the FIIL T1X the #1 earbud for under $50. I say that for a reason. They are expertly tuned. And then not to mention the fact that you also have the FIIL Plus app that allows for EQ adjustments. So there's like a bass boosted mode, there is a treble boosted mode, there's the regular mode, which I personally prefer. And then they also have a ton of different EQ presets that you can play around with. So that gives you a lot of versatility in the type of sound that you can pull from the FIIL T1X or the T1XS. And then let's move over to the SoundPeats H1. Now the H1 is a hybrid driver design. So you've got your dynamic driver that's going to deliver you that bass and that low mid-range. And then you've got the balanced armature that's going to give you all that treble and all of that clarity. So they're bringing you strong, deep bass, nice sub bass, lots of rumble to it. If you're watching movies with explosions, things of that nature, you're really going to enjoy that. As far as the mid-range, it is smooth, but it is neutral. So it is not in your face. It is not as forward as what you're getting with the FIIL T1XS. Now, as far as treble, they're bringing you a ton of clarity. That's where that balanced armature really separates these from the FIIL T1XS. They're bringing you a much brighter type of sound where you can really hear those snares, you can hear those horns, you can hear a lot like cymbals, things like that, much more clear. And it's also a bit of a wider type of a sound, which really surprised me, a bit more instrument separation, so to speak. Now, for some people, this added treble clarity could be a bit too much. For me personally, it's not, but if you're sensitive to treble, this is something that you definitely want to keep in mind. All right, so as far as which one of these two I'm going to end up picking for myself, I'm going to be going with the FIIL T1XS. Now, the main reason that I'm doing this is because of the fact that they've made additional changes within the past couple of days. So the FIIL T1XS app was finally updated, and now it accepts the FIIL T1XS. So you get access to a full graphic EQ, a lot of different presets, including their bass boost and the treble boost. But they also give you access to a DSP tuning setting, which sort of enhances the soundstage and the overall sound quality of the earbuds themselves. So putting them up against the H1, the T1XS stands above them as far as sound quality is concerned. Despite the fact that these only have a single dynamic driver, the sound quality difference is easily noticeable with the FIIL T1XS. Now, this is something that SoundPeats could definitely address if they ever decide to come out with a companion app that'll give us access to EQ settings, advanced functions, and things of that nature, but it is not available as of yet. So, at least as far as my own personal preference and for my own ears and my own listening preferences, I'm going with the FIIL T1XS. Now, let me just make one thing clear, because people always get this mixed up. They always get my words mixed up. When I say that I like something better than something else, it doesn't make the other thing bad. It just means that I have a personal preference for one or the other. That's exactly what that means. Now, if you're interested in checking out my full videos on both the SoundPeats H1 and the FIIL T1XS, check out the videos that I'm going to leave on the screen right up here. With that all said, I'm out. Peace.